And good evening, everyone. ESS Empire State Sports proudly presents the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Your hosts this evening, Joey Riom, Dave Barlett, myself, Pete Goslaw, and our special guest tonight from SUNY Cortland's men's basketball coach, Tom Spanbauer. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Well, thank you guys so much for putting this on, and I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight.
I'm sure if it's anything like we've had so far before we started, it should be a good night. But yeah. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna let you tell your story quick of where you came from, Coach, and where you are today. I know you've been at Cortland forever, but we'll let you start off by telling a little bit about yourself, and then we'll feed into it and go from there. How's that?
Okay, that'll work for me. I was born and raised in Niagara Falls, New York, and I was a three-sport athlete: football, basketball, baseball. Actually, basketball was the probably least the sport that I got the least amount of attention out of high school. I was an all Western New York football player, all state football player, and an all state baseball player, and basketball was like where I got my least recognition. And coming out of high school, I knew I wanted to teach and coach. And, back then, the only place you went was Cortland. I had some stuff late in June, like as far as scholarship offers, like everyone in high school says they have, but I had them. And finally, my mother came to me in like the beginning of July. She says, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I just want to go and be a teacher coach." And she says, "Well, you got to make a decision." So I ended up choosing Cortland, obviously. And I went to Cortland, spent my 4 years there. Unfortunately, my mom died my first semester there. And I didn't know if I would stay in college. And I ended up staying in college. I got cut from the baseball team in the first semester. I tried out for the basketball team. And to be honest with you, if my mom didn't die, I probably would have been cut from the basketball team. And it happened right during the time when we were in tryouts. I went home, came back, they kept me around, and I ended up having a good career there as a player. And then I stayed on and did some grad work there. And first teaching job was in Albany. I taught public school for 3 years in Albany, and then I went to and while I was there in Albany, I was coaching with Doc Sowers. I was coaching freshman basketball, and our practices would end at 4:30 because high schools let out at 3, and I'd coach for an hour and a half with the freshman team, and I'd shoot up and work with Doc Sowers and volunteered assistant there for 3 years. And then I went fortunately and was hired full-time as a full-time assistant down at Alfred University, and left public school. And this is how smart or how dumb you are. I took a $10,000 pay cut to go down to Alfred University to be an assistant coach because I wanted to coach college basketball. And I was like doing about 8 different things: men's tennis coach, women's tennis coach, athletic administration, and assistant basketball coach. And then I was there for 4 years, and then I took over as head coach for 1 year. And then the Cortland job opened up. And at the time, they were going through, well, it was 25 years ago. It was one of those times when the state was offering early incentives. And as you know, the guy that I took over for was a North Country guy, John Conowitz. He took the deal for New York State. They gave him 5 years, and he took his early New York State teacher's retirement. And I went in, I interviewed, I said, "Hey, listen, this thing's part-time, and there's no guarantees you come in here. If you don't get it done, there's no guarantees. It's not a full-time position." So here's how smart I was. I took another $10,000 pay cut to go to Cortland. And I just knew it was a place if I ever had a chance to get back to, that I would go back to. So I went there, and it took me, in my third year, I had to go through a national search to get the position. And I'm sitting in my office while they're walking candidates around the campus, and I'm the head men's basketball coach, and they're walking other candidates around the campus. So, of course, I ended up getting a position, and have been there. Just finished my 25th year. So it's been an interesting ride. It's been a hard ride, but it's been a fun ride, and I've enjoyed Cortland. It's a great place.
Well, I'm going to start off a few things right out the bat. So I'm gonna assume you've made up that $10,000 by now, right, Coach?
I don't know if you ever make it up, but yeah. Well, I guess we have. In SUNY, we're like 2%. I think they say inflation's 3%. You get 2% raises, so that means you're still going 1% backward.
Yeah, true. So
I'm not complaining. Money's not it.
It's not an issue if you get your dream job, I guess.
No, because I had some opportunities. I interviewed at a couple. Actually, the interesting situation when I did interview, the year that they advertised the job, I was offered a couple other positions and I was at the crossroads of my career, where I was deciding whether I wanted to stay as a head coach or like chase the ladder and move into Division I. I had a couple Division I assistant coaches positions offered, and that actually helped me garner a little bit more money when they had offered me the position at Cortland. But it was the place I wanted to be.
So we're getting a reoccurring theme here. Number one, we know your ties with Cortland, and we've had people that come on from Cortland. We've had people come on from Ithaca. So, and I know you guys don't see eye to eye, the crosstown rival. I know about that.
In basketball, it's so much different than like football, because we typically play Ithaca, a week or two after the football game takes place. So most of the students, they're so sick of the Cortland Ithaca thing, and they're still hungover. And our basketball games, many times early in my career, didn't mean a thing, but it's quite interesting because they've been very competitive. We've been always competitive. Our games now have been a little bit more, I think students support the basketball game way more than what they used to, which has been a real positive thing. But there's never any bad blood. Like, Jimmy Mullins, who's spent time up in the North Country at Plattsburgh. I mean, I respect him so much, and I wish him his best in retirement now. He's done a great job with that program. And then God bless Tom Baker. I know Tom Baker had a camp up on St. Lawrence River, I believe. And he was a very good colleague and a great coach to compete against.
So another thing you hit on was Alfred University. I was a Alfred State College guy across the hill. We always called you guys Huey. So, but I did go down to quite a few of the football games down there. It was quite a football school. So never did go over for basketball. But anyway, so you quite a road you've traveled, Coach. But you got to be happy at where you are now. And I'm sure Joey's got a lot more questions about moving forward and your team. But I'm going to start off by asking right out the bat, because I ask this to every coach. Your favorite season versus your favorite team. Now, of course, I know it's tough to pick that. Jerry Welch actually, his remark threw me back in the chair. But I'm gonna let you pick your answer.
It's interesting that you asked me that question. I was on another another podcast a few weeks ago, and someone asked me that, and to be honest with you, I would do a disservice to any of the teams that I've coached to say that I liked one team more than the other. I've never judged our success of the season on where the team ended. We've always taken an approach as a group, meaning the players, assistant coaches, let's just do the best that we can do with the talent that we have. And we've won a lot more games with some teams than other teams, but that hasn't meant that those seasons were any better. I've enjoyed every emotion of losing with these teams and every emotion of winning with the teams every year. So the thing that I would say is that I really have like watching each team have its own identity, and I don't know. Like I said, I would do a disservice to any of the teams that to pick one as a favorite. To be honest with you, I have loved every team that I've coached because our guys have just come in and they've worked hard, and for the most part, we've tried to play together at all times. No, we've had a couple of years that, there were a couple of years that a couple of seasons ended with some bad blood. But you know what? For the most part, we've just laced them up and said, hey, let's go play as a team and let's go have some fun. And if we win the championship, we win it. If we don't, let's just make sure we go down as a team. I think the best coaching job I ever did, I don't know if you checked my record, but we set the school record for 3 years in a row. We went 23 wins, 24 wins, 23 wins. And then the next year we went 5 wins. And I think in my 25-year career, the best job I did coaching was in the year that we won 5 games. These guys competed and we played and we were good. We lost probably 10 games inside the last minute. And it was just one of those things. We were so good for so long that none of the players played. So they all learned got their experience in 5 game time. So we lost a lot of close games. So, I couldn't pick a favorite team. And I get that question from the players anytime I see them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what Jerry Welch told me, and then I'll turn it over to Joey. But I asked Jerry Welch that, and he goes, "Do you have kids?" And I go, "Yeah, I have 2 daughters." He said, "Which one's your favorite?" It kind of put me back in my seat, going, "Okay, I guess he just shut me up, so I guess I'll let him go." But I'll turn it over to Joey. I'm sure he's got more to talk about than me. That's for sure.
Well, Coach. Speaking of Jerry, he brought you up in his show because we told him about the SUNYAC coaches that we've had on our show, and that Coach Conowitz is also coming up. He'll be coming up in a couple of weeks, and we're looking forward to that. But Coach Welch brought up the fact that he coached against you as a player. You were a player at SUNY Cortland at that time, and said you were a hell of a player. So. And he wanted to make sure that we knew that. So, do you recall your trips up and playing against Coach Welch's teams? Because that was the Potsdam State heydays back when you were in school.
Oh, it was the heydays, and we went up there, and this is one thing that I would tell you guys, and we're all still bitter about at Cortland. My senior year. Well, first off, my junior and senior year, the only team we lost to was Potsdam at home. My senior year, we were undefeated at home. We beat Potsdam at home. We were on probation. SUNY Albany, SUNY Cortland, and Potsdam all tied for the East Division Championship. But we were on probation because we apparently an administrative error. We had played too many games the year before. And we tied for the East Division Championship. And that was in 1983. And, Potsdam, I believe that year ended up going to the Final 8 or the Final 4. In 1982, the previous year, they won in 82, they won the national championship. So, we had battles up at Potsdam, and we competed with them my junior and senior year. And Jerry was a great coach, and he really had a team that just played hard. And of course, I was super cocky, and we had some really good players, and we kind of snuck under the radar because Doc Sowers and Jerry Welch had this rivalry for the 10 years. And then for 2 years, Cortland came into that rivalry because we beat SUNY Albany my junior and senior year at home. As I mentioned, the only team we lost to was Potsdam. So we were 21-1 at home my junior and senior year. And Cortland was not good at that time. They had never done that. So we ended up sneaking in under the radar. But his teams were great. And, we had I enjoyed, going up there. It was a great atmosphere. I can remember the band playing. The place was packed. And it was good. And it was a great place to play.
And who did you play for? Who was the coach at SUNY Cortland when you were there?
At the time, it was Bill Williams, who was actually a part-time coach. He was a public school teacher, and he had taken over for the coach who had previously retired, that had coached for 14 or 15 years and had some decent years. But back then at Cortland, they were professors. They were professors first, coach second. And then Bill Williams came in, and we had a group of guys that, like I said, we were good. We were really good, and we challenged everyone in the SUNYAC. And fortunately, like I said, we tied with Potsdam, Albany, and Cortland, all split with each other. We lost it at home, we lost at their places, and we beat them and we all tied for that first place in that division. And back then, the top 2 teams in the division went to the site for the Final 4 for the SUNYAC. And we were left out because we were on probation because of an administrative mistake of our junior year.
Tough way to be left out.
Yeah. As a player, you're right. As a player, you're right.
Yeah. It's funny. We've had so many of the SUNYAC coaches on now, which I'm proud of because I just love SUNYAC basketball. And and just to get a little brief part of the history right there, that was something probably Pete, Dave, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
No one knows that. We tied them, and as I mentioned, that was for me, that was a bitter pill as a competitive player being, and I was all SUNYAC. Back then, we had the 12 teams in the conference. Mm-hmm. You have to remember, we were in with Buffalo, Binghamton. There were 2 divisions. There was the East Division and the West Division, and there were 2 divisions, 6 teams in each division. So the top 2 teams went, and so when you were in those top 2 spots, you went to that Final 4. It was knock down, drag them out after getting through the other. Our leagues were good. You played your own division twice, and then you played the other side once, and that was your schedule. And like I said, my junior and senior year, we lost 1 time at home, and it was only to Potsdam, and that was the year that in 82. Which I want to say that was a Final 4 team for them because I know they won it when I was a sophomore. They won it national
81, 86.
They won it in 81, so I think 82 was the year they went to the Final 4 but didn't win it.
Yes. Yep.
Those are unbelievable times in the SUNYACs, obviously. So, it kind of changed the subject real quick, but one of the things I think you're about our 32nd, 33rd show. I don't think we can go more than 2 shows without some sort of SUNY Cortland connection.
Yeah, right.
There is a SUNY Cortland connection throughout the whole North Country. Not, my three PE teachers at St. Lawrence Central, all SUNY Cortland grads. Talk about the impact that your college, your campus. I mean, you churn out people that stay in New York State, and I don't know if you can go to a school in the North Country, let alone New York State, that doesn't have at least one SUNY Cortland representative at their school. I mean, you got to be proud of the college that you work for.
I really am, and I, my father. I grew up in a family where my father was a probation officer, and he did service work, and like people talk to me about, oh, coaching is so glamorous, you're on this. I said, no, time out. It's coaching is service, and teaching is service, and our college prepares people to go and serve our society, and they do a great job. And that's why I love Cortland, because we get people that want to come and make other people better and serve our society. And that's one of the things I've loved the most about Cortland, and working with the student athletes that I work with, along with just the students that I work with at Cortland, is that they're trying to make a difference, not for themselves. They're trying to make a difference for society. They're trying to make people better so they can go out and make our society better. That's exciting. That's exciting. I call coaching, that's what I call it. I call it social work in uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
Social work in uniforms. And I hope that I've made some players go out and try to make a difference in their local communities, and make themselves better, but yet more importantly, make their communities better, because what they've taken from their experiences with Cortland and being involved with Cortland basketball.
Well, and I know you must be a little bit happy here. I know Toby was pretty happy a couple days ago getting the email saying he now knows that there's a plan to get back onto campus in the fall. So at least we know the kids are coming back. Any idea yet with sports?
Well, here's what I can tell you is, like, I also coach women's tennis, and I took over for a North Country legend, Pete Cahill, they've already moved the fall. They split the soccers to two divisions, East and West, and they're going to play for two reasons. Number one, because of the shortened season, and then there's some financial things that are happening across the board with schools. So as a cost-saving measure, they're going divisional, and then they're going to play into a championship. And then the NCAA may not even have Division III championships next year. So that's still up in the air. But from the SUNY standpoint, athletics, we're going to bring our student athletes back the same time the students come back, because there's rules that the NCAA is that they have to be on campus for 24 or 28 days before they can go compete against anyone. Obviously, no one can afford to bring anyone back to do a normal, play the first week in September. So the fall sports are definitely disrupted. As far as basketball, what we're hearing is that we might go to like some practices, some games, and once everyone hits the Thanksgiving break, people are going to go home, and they're not coming back to campus. They won't come back until that second semester starts, like the second or third weekend of January. But what does that do for a 2-semester sport? Well, no one knows yet what it does to a 2-semester sport. So they're talking about, well, do we even start basketball in the first semester? Do we just let them practice? And then we start our games in the second semester. So they don't know yet. Everything's a lot of hypothetical situations or answers or questions out there.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I'm going through the same thing being the athletic director up here. We don't have anything definitive yet. And one of the things I've said and constantly throughout this is as soon as I hear something about the SUNY schools, because obviously Governor Cuomo and the state have, same say with that as they're going to with the high schools, that's when I would start getting a feeling that maybe something positive might happen. So when Toby got his email the other day saying they at least are going back to school, I thought, well, that's at least the start of a good sign.
Well, he got the email that, I don't know if we've been approved officially. Like, we submitted our plan to go, like, with everything that we're going to do. So we still have to be approved. But yeah, they're foot on the gas pedal to have everyone back in the fall.
Well, that's good.
And,
Okay.
And then of course athletics is a whole different dynamic because it's
Right.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit. I know one of the things that being able to come down now a couple of times. Holy cow, that life center that you guys have is amazing. I think I could just hang out there all day, on top of your facility with the gym and the hockey rink and everything. I could hang out in those two places all day and be pretty happy. I mean, that life center is unbelievable.
Yeah, like I try to tell people, we're the only campus that has a freestanding student life center that is like solely dedicated to the holistic approach of our students, all about rec, all about like being healthy, all about like offering, yoga classes, meditation classes. And even in Division I campuses, Binghamton, Buffalo, Stony Brook, Albany, they don't have freestanding facilities, and we do. And it's all a credit to our director of recreational sports, Julian Wright. He beat a drum for 10 years to get this building built. And this kind of building is like, it's a normal building on major Division I campuses. That's what like the norm is. Like, they're separate facilities, and you never. So we didn't. But you're right. That building just exudes energy when you walk into it, and it's the design of the building is great. The fact that it sits right essentially in the middle of our campus, the location of it, it's just a home run. And I think that's why we've, ultimately Cortland's become the most popular comprehensive campus as far as applications. And that's why, yeah, that building's been a deal breaker.
Well, and like I said, I know I've enjoyed it every time I get to go down and I visit Toby. And I went down, saw a couple of your games. And actually, it was a North Country weekend by chance. That was the only weekend I could get down there. I got down there to see Potsdam State and Plattsburgh State. I saw you when you were up here against Potsdam State. But so I'm sitting in the crowd for your Plattsburgh State game at your place with Shirley Cahill. Okay. And she was the one that pointed out to me, I had no idea that Coach Conowitz was still coaching and that he was on the sideline for SUNY Plattsburgh, and had no clue about that. And, and then Dave has mentioned Coach Conowitz a couple of times because he was at North Country when Coach Conowitz was at North Country Community College. And so talk a little bit about your connection with Coach Conowitz, how you've known each other throughout the years. And Coach Welch just couldn't stop talking about the basketball mind that he has.
I'll tell you what, he left the table set for me. And I still, some of the funny stuff is every time I go, whenever we play against Plattsburgh, I always bring him some from his files, because he's always got a set of files that he had, and he never threw them out when he left. He just left. And I still am emptying out his files. So I always, whenever we go play Plattsburgh, I go dig into the file. I'll bring him this scouting report, or I'll bring him his notes of something. He was so detailed. He was organized. And he actually really got Cortland basketball, back on the railroad tracks moving forward. There was a little bit of a gap after we had those good years when I played. There was a little bit of a gap where they weren't very, they kind of fell off the railroad tracks, but he got them back on the railroad tracks. And he's been super supportive of Cortland basketball. And he's a great basketball mind. And I like reading his notes and his folders that he used to write about, like his scouting reports. And but he's a great guy, and I enjoy seeing him every time I see him.
Well, we're looking forward to having him on in a couple of weeks, to know that we've gotten you and Coach Welch and Coach Conowitz on, some real SUNYAC legends, and we've had the opportunity to talk to Coach Bechtel from SUNY Potsdam. I've gotten a chance to really know him. I think he's doing a great job there at SUNY Potsdam. So, the SUNYAC just really close to our heart up here when it comes to college basketball. We think that it's the premier D3 league in the state. I'm sure as a SUNYAC guy yourself, you're going to say that, but I mean, it's got to be one of the most respected conferences out of the 45 of them in D3 basketball throughout the country, not just the state of New York.
It really is, like on a regional basis, our records, like if we look at our records of our teams against the outside, teams, we're like, it's outstanding. Where we've had a hiccup is we've struggled to send a team past, and this year, of all years, it was unfortunate because Brockport, they were on a roll. They were on their way. They were on their way to the Final Four, I think. We haven't sent a team to the Final Four since Potsdam, and that's the last was 86, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's where our league, we kind of, as competitive as we are, we run into a wall, so to speak. And what's the wall? Well, the wall is, there's a lot of factors that go into running into the wall. It's like when that bracket comes out, who you're playing against. And keep in mind, we're still a state university system where we're only recruiting players from within our state. When you look at the end of the year, when the smoke clears and you look at the final 8 teams that are in the national championship year in, year out, they've got players from 5 different states that are on those teams, where we're all kind of splitting the pie a little bit. And that's one of the reasons why I think we haven't, we can't get past the wall. Someone recently asked me a question, well, why do the Wisconsin schools do so well? So I went and did some research. For 2 years in a row, Wisconsin always puts a team in, they have the Whitewaters that have won it. For 2 years in a row, we had 2 out-of-state players on all of our rosters in the 10 teams. The Wisconsin schools had 55 out-of-state players. Keep in mind now, they have 3 different levels of tuition for the Wisconsin state schools. They have an in-state, a bordering state, and then an out-of-state tuition. So that Wisconsin league that does so well, they're tucked up there with right next to Chicago and, in that area where it's not the same as the SUNYAC, even though everyone equates, well, why isn't the SUNYAC? But, well, we don't have 3 different levels of tuition. And we don't have the bordering states that they have. We're so overpopulated with institutions. And they don't have those numbers of institutions. So, yeah, we hit the wall, and that's where we're.
Well, I never would have thought of it that way. And you're right. SUNYAC schools are mostly New York kids. I never think about the fact that you guys don't get out-of-state kids coming to play hoops in the SUNYACs.
No, No, we don't. And like I said, all you got to do is if you did my research, you go look at the teams that from Wisconsin. They are picking from a tri-state area, which you would think, okay, can we pick from New Jersey, Connecticut, New York? Well, there's so many schools that it's really hard to pull a kid out of New Jersey to come to New York because of the out-of-state tuition, and we have so many more schools. Out in the Midwest, there's not as many schools, so it's just it's a little bit different landscape, or not a little bit. It's a much different landscape out there, and in New York, when you look at who's like the last team that's made it the farthest was University of Rochester. When you looked at their starting lineup, they started 4 out-of-state students, and they're an East Region team, but 4 of their players were out-of-state players. So the teams that have gone the farthest typically aren't doing it with 5 New York guys, which is what a SUNYAC team needs to do it with.
So I got a question, Coach. Sorry to step on you, Joe, but
Sorry.
how long has that rule been in effect? Because it kind of limits it, and I wanted to go into scouting a little bit with you too, but it kind of limits your, like you said, your cream of the crop pick. So is that a SUNY? Who makes that rule? I mean,
which rule is that?
The SUNY, you can only pick from New York State.
Oh, no, we can go out of state, but it's just it comes down to a financial situation at Division III where players are paying their own way.
Okay.
I mean,
okay. Because I was a little confused there because I never heard that rule before. It's like, wait a minute, you can only pick from New York State, but now I understand.
Like, say for example, like I'm in Cortland. We're an hour and a half from Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, which is good basketball.
Yep.
But any of those players down there, they come in as an out-of-state student. They're paying essentially double the tuition.
Yeah, it's twice.
So it's not worth it. I understand. I would totally understand.
Yeah, so we lose our bargaining value, and people are shoppers at Division III. Parents are shoppers.
Absolutely. So I want to ask a little bit, and I know Joey's probably got more questions, but I want to ask you more about your scouting since this is brought up for the New York State thing. Do you do most of your scouting? You send your assistants out, or a little bit of mix bag, and then you make the final decision? How does that work?
We do them all.
Okay.
We do it all. Assistants are out, and this thing with technology now, the amount of stuff that like people send to you, the amount of students that you have to try to like canvas through and sift through, that's where the labor gets involved. You have to really try to sift through the kids that are sincerely interested in you as an institution. And then you have to try to go out and evaluate them. And then like say, yeah, I think you're good enough to potentially come to Cortland. And for us, we have an open tryout. So as a state institution, we always have 1 to 2 players that have just contacted us in the summer and said, hey, coach, I'm coming to Cortland. I want to try out for the team. You're more than welcome. And they're good enough to, and that's the interesting thing about Division III is that the gap is really small. And at Cortland, we don't need to use athletics as a recruiting tool for enrollment, where a lot of institutions need to use athletics for enrollment. We don't need to guarantee anyone, hey, you come into Cortland, you got a spot on a team. We can't do that.
And welcome back to part 2. Take it away, Joey.
Okay, Coach. Thanks for joining us again. So we lost power last week. That was the reason, or why you're seeing part 2, and we have different clothing on and everything. We didn't have a costume change. Coach Spanbauer lost power, so So we're kind of splicing these two together. And so, Coach, just give us a little thing. One of the things we wanted to talk about was tennis. We didn't get to talk about your tennis side of your coaching career, so we want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, well, I actually, I was an avid tennis player when I got to Cortland, and the head coach, Pete Cahill, long time physical education instructor, who was like a diehard tennis player, as you know, from up in the North Country. And he had a senior ranking in tennis. So he was a real player. So the only one on the campus that would go out there and hit with him, and was dumb enough to hit with him for 2 to 3 hours a day, because he just needed to get his workout and his reps in, was me. And I ended up becoming pretty proficient with it. So he and I had a beautiful career playing tennis against each other, my first, 10 years here at Cortland. And then one spring, he returned from Florida, and he had a cyst on his leg, and he thought nothing of it, ended up getting it tested, and it was cancerous. And he went with some aggressive treatments in the spring. So I actually took the tennis team over as an interim coach in the spring while he was going down to Sloan Kettering and getting his treatments, because he had to go aggressive treatments. This thing was like full-fledged. They said, you got stage 4. You need to do the most aggressive things that are out there. Some of them were experimental. So I hung it in the spring, and he actually recovered a little bit and ended up coming back and trying to start the fall season. And that fall, he coached for 2 days, and then he walked into my office and said, hey, listen, I can't do this. He goes, I don't have the energy, and my body's starting to break down again. So I ended up taking the tennis team over by default, and then unfortunately, Pete passed away that November. And that was super, super quick, super aggressive. And then I just ended up staying with it. I actually enjoy it. It's a nice counterbalance to basketball. Some of the issues that I have in tennis are on the opposite end of the spectrum of what I deal with as far as issues in basketball. So, and it's a really good sport. It really is a nice sport. And I've enjoyed it. So that's why I've stayed with it for so long.
And
well, you were, SUNYAC Coach of the Year in 2008, was it, with Cortland?
Yeah, I can't remember all the years, but I know. yeah.
So that's quite an honor, though.
Yeah. It's and tennis is really one of the sports where there's not a lot of upsets in tennis.
Right.
Usually you're going into the match, and you can, as a coach, you're pretty much going to predict the score, unless something strange happens. And but it's been a really good sport for me to coach. Like I said, it's very refreshing, and the young ladies that I deal with, they're just great people. Probably, I think, 2 of the toughest athletes I ever coached in men's basketball and women's tennis. 2 of the top 5 are 2 women's tennis players that were just grinders, and they were just tough athletes. So there's some ladies out there that are really tough when they compete.
So Coach, do the 3 of us a favor, and maybe most of our viewers, but what's a college tennis match entail? Is there more than one match going at a time? And
yeah. So what happens?
Singles, doubles, all that. Go ahead.
Yep. The match is 9 points. There's 9-point match. So you have to win 5 points, obviously, to win a match. There's 3 doubles matches, which get played first. And then you go out and play your 6 singles matches. obviously doubles become really, really critical, because if you come out of doubles, you know, if you can sweep doubles, you're only talking you got to win 50% of your singles matches. That's at our level. That's how they do it at our level, Division III. In Division I tennis, doubles is only worth 1 point. So whoever wins the doubles portion, the best 2 out of 3, they get 1 point, and then the 6 singles are divided up for points. So there's 7 points in a Division I match. There's 9 in our matches. So so you got to get out of doubles, and doubles is typically like a sport. And if you think about it, like the best tennis players at the high school level, they're always playing in the singles because they're the best tennis players. So they don't have much doubles experience. So that's the one that takes a little time to get them adjusted to. And with women's tennis, most of the players just love to play right off the baseline. So, and in doubles, it's totally opposite. You have to take the net over, and you got to play at the net and be aggressive at the net. So there's a paradigm shift you got to get some players to go through and teach them some, you know, volley skills and get them to be aggressive at the net, get them to come in behind balls and take the net over. So it takes a little time.
What about officiating of the matches?
Well, that's the beauty of the sport.
How's that done?
They call their own lines.
Okay.
And
that's what I was thinking, but I wanted to ask first.
And they call their own lines, and what happens is most 98% of the ladies are is good and fair, and believe it or not, they go the other way. I have to talk to my ladies about, listen, if the ball's out, you got to call it out. You know, you're not hurting the other person's feelings. That's just the way the sport goes. So I have to have the conversation about, because our ladies are very, very like liberal with, they're afraid to call balls out. And sometimes that becomes a problem. So you have to have that conversation as well. But that's the beauty of the sport. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a, you know, I didn't. So is there's absolutely no true official at any match, or is there a point where, you know, you're playing in a title match, or SUNYAC championships or something?
And when we go to the championships, there's a roving official that will go and rove, and the roving official never gets involved in any calls unless a player defers to the official. Like if he was on court and I hit a ball that the player called out and I thought it was in, I could defer to the official because he was on court, and then he would make a ruling. What happens in normal matches, and this is where with the ladies it gets a little bit, you know, tenuous, so to speak, is if there's a player that you have a complaint with, the player feels like they're not getting, what happens is 2 teammates, one from their team, one from our team, they'll go and they'll stand on the court. And then if the player makes a call that the other player thinks is not correct, they defer to the player that's covering that sideline, that's baseline, and say, hey, was that call correct? And they actually make the decision. It's quite interesting when it gets to that point because, you know, ladies aren't used to being under that kind of pressure, and yeah.
That's really odd. I can't imagine there's not more issues during the course of a game.
There's certain teams that we've competed against that tend to have more issues than others, but like as I mentioned, you know, basically 90% of everyone, they're doing the best job that they can, just trying to call these lines and play. It's really, that's the beauty of the sport. It would be like playing basketball and call your own fouls.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which you know how that's going to get.
Yeah.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
So How about so one more thing on the tennis? So how is the SUNYAC championships performed? Is it all the teams go up? Is it a playoff down to?
We're to a top four format now because we play a full round robin. Top four format, 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3. You've played already, and that's where it's pretty predictable. There's not a lot of it's not like basketball. Well, first off, you don't involve 3 guys in stripes, so they don't have an impact on the game. So that's where tennis becomes straightforward. New Paltz and Geneseo have had a nice little run on the, kind of running our conference here the last 5 to 8 years. So, yep. And it's really good tennis. Like we've had, like on both the teams that have won, we have a lot of scholarship tennis players that go away. They play scholarship tennis for a year, and they want the Division III lifestyle where they're not beating balls for a living, and they'll end up back in our league. And our league is a good league with the upper teams. Like we all have 1 to 2 scholarship players, so to speak. So it would be like having a scholarship player on your basketball team. It's like these ladies have gone away, and they just haven't enjoyed the scholarship experience in scholarship tennis because it's a grind. It's a grind.
What about so is there you ever sent a girl to the NCAAs, or is that?
We have not. We actually Pete said the year or 2 before I took over, he had a doubles team and that qualified. And tennis has gone through some changes where it used to be an individual sport, so you had a ranking in your region. But now what happens is it's become a team sport where the conference champion, it's just like basketball. The conference champion goes into the NCAA tournament.
The whole team.
The whole team goes and plays. And you're talking some of the teams that play at the division, like in the first round of the tournament, like say for example, I think each of the last 3 years, the team that represented the NCAA tournament, the first team to get 5 points, the matches are all done. You're on the court playing, doesn't matter, the match is over, which is kind of interesting. And then, so they've won 5-0, and the next day they've gotten beaten 5-0. Because that's the disparity of the sport where you're talking a couple of elite private schools that really they're all scholarship players, but they're playing Division III tennis.
So that all being said now, Coach, so we've heard tennis, we've heard the basketball. One of the questions I didn't get to last week, what's your favorite trip? What's your favorite trip in the SUNYACs? What place do you look forward to go to the most? And when you get up to that place, what's the go-to restaurant? What's the go-to you got to have one.
I do. And it's without question my North Country trip when we play Plattsburgh first because we get to go up on Thursday. So we leave Cortland, and typically it's been late in the year now, so we don't even practice because we get an hour on the court on Friday at Plattsburgh, and it's such a tough trip. So we'll end up leaving Cortland at like 4:30. And we've gone, believe it or not, people think we're crazy, and our women's coach thinks I'm crazy. And we go to Binghamton and across 88 and get to Albany. And then what we've done recently in probably the last 6-7 years, we stop at the Crossgates Mall, and we let the students give them their money, let them go in and get their meal. Because it's hard to take 44 people into a restaurant on Wolf Road and get in there and, get a meal. So what we've done is the students like it. It gets them. We can say, listen, you got 1 hour, go in, eat what you want in that food court in that mall. And then we finish the trip up to Plattsburgh, which is usually in between, 2:15, 2.5. And then, fortunately, we've been staying there right there next to the Pizzeria Uno at the Hampton, and now the Fairfield right across the street.
Pete and I know exactly where that is. We interviewed Coach Tom Curl at Uno's Pizzeria.
Yep.
We did.
Yeah.
Yep. And
that's a great hangout.
I was there for that show, watching you guys.
Yep, that's a great hangout. So
well, the last time we won the championship, you know, we were we ended up winning on Saturday, and our bus broke down. So we had to spend 3 hours in the Plattsburgh Student Union trying to decide if the bus driver was going to get the bus going, and we couldn't get it going. So I had to call up, and fortunately, we were able to get some rooms right there at the Hampton again. We checked right back in with all the guys, and of course, everyone's excited. We won. We took the guys over, bought them a nice meal, and that was quite a trip there. Needless to say, the coaches celebrated a little bit too.
Rightly so. Jeez.
Yeah.
Don't people that think that coaches, we have a little fun too, right, Coach?
Yeah.
That's allowed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You have to.
Absolutely.
You have to.
Well, that's good to know that North Country is your favorite trip. That's.
And I always I love Potsdam. I love the gym at Potsdam. I think Potsdam's gym's the second best gym in our league. I think Cortland. I'm indifferent to Cortland, of course, but Potsdam's got the second best gym in the league, and I always enjoy the games up there. And we've eaten many times because there's not many options anymore. Over the 25 years, we've had a few restaurants that we would go to. They were like go-to places for a few years, and next thing we know, we call up the next year and they're closed down. So we've gone to the dining hall there. It's a good little place.
So I saw somewhere SUNYAC had a bracket. Somebody did this. I don't know who did it. It might have been one of the colleges in the SUNYAC, but they did a bracket of the go-to places in each SUNYAC town.
Oh, and cool.
And I can't remember who won it. Maybe I saw it because practice and Toby was there. And Toby took me to Bricks. And you actually walked in, and I'm like, well, this must be the place. If Coach is walking in here, this must be the place. Toby already sniffed out the right place.
Actually, the best place, to be honest with you, the best place in the league is in Plattsburgh. And we've been going, and somehow we fell onto it. Bazzano's Pizza over there, low. It's within our budget. And then we've also fallen into over in Oneonta. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Brooks Barbecue.
No.
It's out right off of 88, and it's a barbecue place. And so those are probably the two go-to places that we go every year. Like I ask the guys, we're going to Plattsburgh. You guys want to go to? They're all like, hands up. Bazzano's is the place. Because they got TVs. It's like a little, it's casual. And they get to relax, and it's great food.
I'll see if I can dig that thing up, because I saw it. I thought it was – because obviously Sergi's was listed as one of the go-to places.
Sergi's. We used to go to Sergi's, and he kind of outpriced himself from us.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We went to 2 years ago 2 or 3 years ago, we went to the train station in Potsdam. I forget the name of the restaurant, the old train station. Yeah. And apparently that's a Cortland grad that owns it, and he gave us a meal that was just fabulous.
Mama Lucia's.
Yes.
Yep.
Fabulous meal. Low pricey, but he took care of us because it was a Cortland grad, and we had a nice lunch. And that was also back when we were doing the flip times, where the men were playing first, so our schedules were a little bit different. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So, Pete, we still have you?
I'm still here, I guess.
Is Pete still? I needed it. I wanted to ask is he still there?
I'm
He's
still here.
All right.
It's in and out. Sorry.
Well, Coach, okay. One of you mentioned Pete. I want to tell you this because I know you're close with him. You were close with him, and obviously Shirley, and it being my aunt and uncle. And July 4th is coming up, and when I was a kid, 11, 12, 13 years old in the early 80s, my family used to do a 5K run on July 4th, just the family. And of course, Pete would go running by me. I'd run out to the early lead like the dumb young kid that I was, and Pete would go running by me, and he'd end up winning the race. And then we'd come back and we'd play a family basketball game. The in-laws versus, we called the Rioms. We were the Outlaws.
Okay.
And, Pete,
nice.
I don't know if you ever played a game of basketball with Pete, but he could play. He wasn't great, but he could play. Played with his brain, played with his body.
Yeah,
and
I could see that.
I totally could see him being a good tennis player. I never had the privilege of watching him play tennis.
Oh man, he was the best. PKO was the best. Like I said, he had that senior ranking when I got here in the Cortland, and he was into it. And yep, just a very tough athlete mentally.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, and just a good athlete, obviously overall, to be able to do all the things that he did. And the last thing I had the privilege of when he got inducted into the Malone High School Hall of Fame up here. He got inducted with his two brothers at the same time. I got to meet his two brothers, and obviously Shirley was there because I was invited to come up, and it was just a nice evening. And I don't know if you've ever met his two brothers, but I
have. His one brother had a son that we recruited that ended up going out to Springfield and was a big basketball star. His one brother is the taller of the two. Yeah, I did meet him, and very nice people. Very nice people.
Yeah, it was. And I think one of the brothers went to Brockport. I'm pretty sure. And then I can't remember where the other one went, but
okay.
But it was interesting to meet the two of them because I had never met them before. So
yeah,
that was kind of cool. So, but so as the week went on, I mean, any updates, any positive news when it comes to going back to school? Or
no, our campus, everyone is still like out in the dark. There's so much out there. There's some campuses that keep trickling in at our level that are saying, hey, listen, we're coming back. We're not doing anything till January 1st. And then our campus right now submitted the plan to the state to open up full force. It looks like, normal return time, but not athletes, no sports coming back before the normal student population. So we're coming back, and the NCAA has a mandate that you have to be on campus for 28 days before you can go compete outside your campus. So we're just bringing back all of our athletes with the normal students. Some of it's like there's some campuses that are in financial crisis, so it's going to help them in that end. Everyone right now, the fall sports are all on reduced schedules. The soccers are eliminating basically all of their non-league contests. Going to start playing around September 30th, do a 1-month schedule, and then go to the playoffs. NCAA is talking about potentially no fall championships for any of the fall sports. Like, just you can go play, but we're not hosting any championships. So there's a lot of stuff on the table. Nothing's finalized. Everyone's just hoping that school's open. Everyone's just hoping that school's open, and then, the whole athletics thing's another dynamic to the school opening. Because there's just a whole nother set of things that can happen. once you start taking students from your campus to another campus, that's where things can get tricky.
Right.
Coach, you mentioned something before we went live today about tennis possibly getting bumped to spring. If you can just elaborate.
Oh, no,
on
that's
that.
done. That decision's been made. We've already
Okay.
moved it to the spring, and we're a fall sport. We moved it to the spring just out of, to be safe, because we're pretty flexible. Because our actually tennis championship that the NCAA sponsors is in the spring. So for us, that was an easy move. Where all the other fall sports, their championship sponsored by the NCAA is in the fall. And that's the unique thing about tennis. You can pick which season you play, fall or spring. And we just kicked it to the spring, which was a smart move.
That was a school decision, not.
Yeah, that was
okay.
it was a league decision, SUNYAC.
Okay.
That was a SUNYAC conference decision.
So the whole conference is now pushed to the spring.
The whole conference is going to play in the spring.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and we have 8 teams. We do a full round robin. 7 league matches.
So obviously that doesn't impact, and this probably is true anyway. There's no girls on the tennis team that are playing more than one sport.
Actually, we've had, next year I was scheduled to have two basketball tennis players.
Oh, cool.
So we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, we'll get them after. But, always the thinking with tennis and is that, a tennis player is playing tennis all summer when they're at home. So when they come to the campus, they're ready to go. When you play tennis in the spring, we're going to start our season, and no one's been playing tennis outdoors, and now you got the additional cost of trying to get indoor court time. So that's why we've never gone to the spring. And most of the schools, like a lot of the private schools, like you take the St. Lawrence, you take Skidmore, you take Hobart, Rochester, they all have indoor tennis facilities. So when their students return to campus in January, their tennis practices start. They're indoors. They're playing indoors for 2 months. And then they're playing their matches once this weather breaks in the spring, where we don't have that option. So that's what we're behind if, we do it this way.
So do you have, what do you have for facilities at your place, Coach, that you can go inside?
We don't really go inside. I'll do some stuff in the gym, probably like any other high school tennis coach that coaches when the weather, I mess around, put some carpets down. We try to do some drill work. We're fortunate, though. I try to get over, and we go over to Cornell University. They got a beautiful tennis center, so I try to get over there like 2 times a week in the spring. But we're the 4th on the pecking order, so our time when we can get in there, it's real strange times because they got their men's team, their women's team, their tennis club members and faculty. So it's a little bit of a challenge.
So
You're doing a lot of those. Oh, sorry, David.
Yeah, I was gonna say so you're doing tennis practice at 10 o'clock at night or so.
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're driving over. It's about door to door. It's probably close to 40 minutes. So you're running over there and you're trying to get an hour and a half worth of court time, and then you're driving back to court and get back at 11:30 at night, which is not great for the student athletes, but that's what you do.
They're young.
Yeah, no. Wait, they're not going to bed anyways. It's more the coach that gets the bad stick.
Well, you stole my question, Dave, because that's exactly what I was going to say. I said you must be hitting the late night thing. So obviously with everything else that's going on.
Well, I want to ask Dave a question. Is the water park going to open in Old Forge this summer? What's the word on that?
They keep saying they're going to. Right now they got a big giant hole in the ground where they were putting in a new slide, and the construction on that, was put on hold. The other thing, they have that foreign worker program that everybody
Yep.
around, and we don't have that this year, so I don't know where they're going to get the staff. And we were kind of reading something about some of the guidelines, but how do you wear a mask, when you're on a water slide, so
Scuba
we
gear.
don't really know.
Yeah, it's gonna be tricky. All I know is that's my two girls keep asking me because that's our favorite, one of our famous couple days when we go up to the water park.
Yeah. No, they keep saying that they're going to, but I don't know.
I heard that they were saying it, and I know they pulled out those blue slides that were very dangerous, and they were putting a little safer ride there.
And the funny part is the owner of the water park is my landlord.
Yeah.
So you'd think I'd have some inside information, but I really don't.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna be. Yeah.
I was in the mountains today. I played golf at Saranac Inn, and the big talk there was that Lake Placid officially shut down everything today when it came to any of their summertime events. They're not doing their Ironman.
The big lacrosse shut down.
Lacrosse.
The horse show.
They didn't say anything about the horse show, and I don't know. Maybe that's already been canceled, but they did not say that. But the two biggies were lacrosse. All lacrosse events are done. The rugby event that they usually have is done. That's a big deal. And the Ironman and their marathons. All their competitive stuff is done. So
did you happen to see my neighbor up there, Tom Meldrum? You ever run into him? He's my next door neighbor owns 2 properties. Well, he just moved, sold his house here next to me. He lives right off of number 2 on the one little road there, and he's got 2 properties right there. Tom Meldrum. Ask around. Just say Tom Meldrum. He's a retired judge.
Number 2, what course?
At Saranac Inn.
Saranac Inn?
Yeah. Or not 2. It's it's the one coming back. Might be maybe it's 18.
Yeah, 17 and 18 are by the road.
Yeah, but he goes, his wife is from up there.
Oh yeah?
They're retired. He's a retired judge here. He was my next door neighbor. Just sold last summer and moved out. And he has 2 places right on the golf course, right behind the woods. The woods border his place is in the golf course.
Okay.
You just mentioned his name. They'll know him up there.
Okay, I will. Next time I'm up there, which is frequent. So.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous course. I love that course.
That's going to be horrible for Lake Placid shutting that down. The amount of revenue that comes through there, they're going to lose a lot up there.
That lacrosse tournament that they run up there, that lacrosse tournament in August, the amount of money that goes through there in that lacrosse tournament, that's a lot of money they're losing.
Yeah, we have Lake George down here, and they're paying a big price right now because they've been pushing off the Americade, which is their biggest revenue for the summer down here, and they've been pushing it off. So I don't know where that is now.
Because that's normally Memorial Day weekend. Right?
Just after, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just after, and you're right, because that's where all the bikers come in.
Yep, first part of June, and they pushed it off till the end of July. I believe it's the week of the 22nd, 26th, something like that. And I got the calendar in front of me. But anyway,
no, we gotta have some of these events take place, or some of these businesses aren't going to stay open. We're the same way down here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're just talking about Lake Placid like it's the only place, but you're right. It's everywhere. I mean, it's going to be everywhere. I mean, we don't have a reason to travel. Why are we going to,
Yeah.
I like a cheap hotel room, and I suppose I can suck it up and wear a mask walking into a bar. But if there's no events to get you to the towns right now, I might as well just stay home.
Yeah, I make my trek to the Adirondacks. We got to bring my girls up. We go up for a week up in the Adirondacks, and we usually stay at the college's property, and they're shut down to August 3rd. Now think about that. They got lean-tos, outdoor cabins that the campus is just shut down till August 3rd up there. The amount of money that they have lost in revenue is quite significant as well.
You're talking about the place in Racket Lake?
Yeah, Racket
Yeah.
Lake.
Yeah, the old Camp Pine Knot.
Yeah, Camp Pine Knot. I mean,
Yeah.
we had, well, I teach normally 2 classes. I would have been up there twice teaching my courses up there, and they canceled the classes.
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be tough, ain't Coach? Coming up here to teach new classes up in God's country.
Well, yeah, paddling around on that lake and swimming and just
Getting paid for it. Yeah, that's got to be tough.
Hey, watching kids from New York City try to paddle a canoe in a circle. That's
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you say in part 1 of the episode that one year you picked the wrong weekend or something? You got eaten alive by black flies?
that was last year because I went back in May for the first time, and for the first time in probably 15 years, I went back in May, and it was not a good week.
No.
The bugs were just full force last year.
And they'll find you no matter where you are.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah, they will.
Saranac Inn, Whiteface, all the golf courses in around the Lake Placid area, they run stupid membership specials for the first couple months. At Saranac Inn, you can go up and play. I could from here go up and play as much as I wanted for $100 until June 30th. But the reason is because at some point the black flies start coming out, and people don't go. But we were able to sneak up. I got up there 4 times, and I didn't once play on a bad black fly day. So.
Yeah, it's funny because when you're up there, and when I've taught these classes, it's like a double-edged sword. If you want the sun out and you want it to get to 65, you're going, okay, the bugs are going to come out. But then if you go, say, listen, just stay cloudy, stay around 40, and the bugs will not be out.
and a slight wind.
Yeah, and a slight wind.
Yeah. You're good
And
to
when
go.
we first went up there, they allowed like all the students and all of the people would smoke cigars.
Yep.
And now we're a tobacco-free campus, so
Mm.
I mean, the students are smoking cigars like it was like their job.
Nothing like a good old heater out in the old woods. And
Yeah, just to keep the bugs away.
yeah. Well, Coach, we sure as heck thank you for coming back and doing a little part 2. We actually went longer than what we had planned, but it worked out great. We got some great tennis information.
Yeah. Well, tennis is an under the radar sport.
That's 35 shows. You're the first tennis conversation we've had, so we wanted to get that in. So
yeah.
And we were talking about it when you cut out last week. We were like, we were just about to bring in the tennis, and he's gone. So, so I'm glad that we were able to pick this up in part 2. And
well, where I've seen tennis go, like just in the 15 years I've been there, like just the social economics of tennis, it's impacted tennis. It's impacted our sport. Just there's less, like in Syracuse, there used to be 3 tennis clubs. There's 1 now. All these little, like in Utica, they used to have one. There's one that shut down. So these places have shut down, and it's a sport that may not survive in upstate New York with less people, less economy, and Lake Placid used to have the tennis club. I played up there at the Lake Placid Tennis Club, and I don't know how they're doing, but that'll be interesting to see how they go. So the economy has affected tennis in upstate.
I think it's affected everything, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Needless to say.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I know the boys appreciate you coming back on, and I do too. I apologize for me being in and out here all night, but I got terrible internet service here for some reason tonight. But thanks a lot for coming back on. I'll have to edit this in the first show, and we'll have to put it in one complete one, and we'll try to post it on an appropriate date.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys taking the time, and you guys are doing a great job, and everyone stay safe and healthy and positive. Everyone's got to stay positive, support each other.
Absolutely.
You know, let's all keep supporting each other, and I'm gonna be up to Old Fort, so I gotta get you gotta send your contact information. Maybe we can get to a restaurant and have a libation without a mask.
You got it. You got it. I know where there is one.
Oh, I know a couple that I like up there.
There you go.
I'm sure the three of us can do a road trip for basketball season too.
I would
Yeah,
love
wait.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's in the
We'll be at
down-
Uno's in Plattsburgh for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, I want to thank our special guest, Tom Spanbauer, and my co-host, Joy Riom, Dave Bartlett, and myself, Pete Goldslaw, here on ESS, Empire State Sports, on the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.